This is Sergei Protosenya. Until recently, he lived comfortably in France with an estimated wealth of more than $400 million. Money he made as a former top manager of the Kremlin-connected Russian gas giant Novatek. He's basically the textbook example of an oligarch. On Tuesday, he was found dead in a rented villa in Spain. According to the Spanish news outlet Telecinco, Spanish police found his wife and daughter dead with axe and knife wounds inside the villa, Protosenya hanging by a bathrobe in the garden. Spanish police believe this is an isolated case of domestic violence and say this is not connected to any criminal gangs or similar cases. This is Vladislav Avayev. He was the former vice president of the Russian Gazprom Bank, which is the bank connected to Russia's biggest oil company, Gazprom. It's Russia's third largest bank. Now, before that, he worked in the Russian office of the president and in the State Duma. On Monday, he was found dead in his luxury apartment in Moscow, along with his pregnant wife and 13-year-old daughter who had cerebral palsy. Russian state-run press says that all three died from bullet wounds and that 13 guns were discovered at the scene, including one that was found in Avayev's hand. They also report that the apartment had been locked from the inside, making impossible, in their telling, that anyone but Avayev could have been involved. Now, these could absolutely be totally unconnected cases of men killing their families and then themselves. What are the odds that two Russian oligarchs with connections to the Kremlin and the oil industry decide to kill themselves within 24 hours of each other? And what are the odds that four have since done so since Putin invaded Ukraine? The Ukrainian-born Russian oligarch Mikhail Watford, who made a fortune in Russian oil and gas in the 90s, was found dead in his $23 million mansion in England on February the 28th. And on the day after Russia invaded Ukraine, February 25th, the financial director at Russia's biggest oil company, Gazprom, was found dead in a cottage near St. Petersburg. Now again, these could all be unconnected individual cases of murder and suicide. Both domestic violence and suicide are unfortunately common things around the world, but these cases deserve a little bit of context. USA Today put out an incredible report back in 2017 in which they documented 38 cases of prominent Russians who had died suspiciously in the previous 3 years. They included 10 high-profile critics of Putin, 7 diplomats, 6 associates of Kremlin power brokers, 13 military or political leaders involved in the conflict over eastern Ukraine. 12 were shot, stabbed, or beaten to death. 6 were blown up. 1 died of mysterious head injuries. 1 reportedly slipped and hit his head in a public bath. 1 was hanged in a jail cell, and 1 died after drinking coffee, end quote. The other 16 were reported as either natural causes or unknown. The Committee to Protect Journalists says that in the 22 years that Putin has been in power, 25 Russian journalists have been murdered. A whole bunch of them apparently just fell out of windows. On April 10th, I interviewed the Russian opposition leader, Vladimir Kara-Murza. He's been poisoned twice by the Kremlin. On April 11th, the day after we spoke with him from Moscow, Kara-Murza was arrested. Today we got the news that he faces up to 15 years in prison for breaking a new law against saying anything other than the government narrative about what's happening in Ukraine. Potentially 15 years in jail just for telling me and you the truth. Which is not too far off from the story of the Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, who was poisoned in 2020 and was just sentenced last month to 9 years in prison on completely bogus charges. That kind of thing is just what Russia does. So again, domestic violence and suicide are a scourge of their own, and all of these recent murder and suicide cases should be investigated individually, but given Putin's government's history of making the people who are inconvenient to them disappear, it also makes sense to investigate the possibility that the Kremlin could be involved in these deaths.